Hi, I'm George Nalen from MindPoint Group. Welcome to the discussion about Ansible Lockdown and Lockdown Enterprise. I've been working on this project, the Ansible Lockdown project, since December 2019, so I've been on it for a fair bit. Some of you might have seen me on GitHub as George Nalen, or in Discord as George of the Desert. My history is I've been a system admin, I've been a QA manager, I've kind of been all around in the technology space and have been heavily in DevOps the last 4 or 5 years. So Mark is joining me here. Mark, introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Mark Bolwell, otherwise known as UK Bolly. So when you see me on Lockdown or on Discord, then you'll see UK Bolly, that's me. Obviously, I have the UK accent, not the American accent. I've got a 20 years background working on Unix-based systems, going from Solaris and HBox back in the day through IBM, AIX, and to Linux. Eventually working towards DevOps practices, working heavily with Ansible, and hardening of systems and so on, which is where I got into Lockdown nearly 3 years ago now, when I joined MindPoint Group. And it's been a journey since, and it just seems to have grown and grown. I think we started when I joined probably September 2000 with about 40 repositories. We're now running, what are we running, George? 60,
Yeah, high
70
60s.
repositories?
I think it's 67 right now.
Yeah, and we had no community back then. We had very little chat going on. So I think we've built up the community. We've got people talking to us more. There's a lot more PRs, a lot more issues coming through, which means the feedback and people are using it. With 2.1 thousand stars or something on GitHub, and just growing. The Discord community is just going from strength to strength, and people are helping each other out. It's great.
That's fantastic. And, it's all kind of around this kind of standards-based hardening. So STIG, CIS, and helping folks really adopt, system hardening in a really easy to use and manage way. So that's kind of the real goals of the Ansible Lockdown project is to make a really easy to use method to deploy on a lot of systems a hardening baseline, whether it's STIG or CIS or whether it's an operating system or an application. Yeah, is there anything else you want to add,
That,
Mark?
that's kind of why I got into it, if I'm honest with you. So I was adopting CIS back in the day, an MSP, and I found it increasingly difficult to try and keep it, maintain it, variabilize it, and came across Lockdown and got introduced to the team back then. In the UK and Europe, we tend to follow the CIS baseline, which is the Centre for Internet Security. They are benchmarks based around best practices, community-fed information, feedback from the vendors to try and help us achieve a good benchmark to harden and secure our systems in the most basic of ways. Normally without extra products, without extra add-ons, just from the operating system. And then when I joined Lockdown, I found out more about STIG. STIG is the Security Technical Implementation Guide put out for you from DISA and the DoD. And that's the federal side of things from the US. So it's very US orientated. Very similar alignments to the CIS, but STIG tends to be a little bit more in depth than what it's doing on some of the things.
Yeah. It's the federal government side, whether it's FedRAMP trying to sell into the federal government or you're actually a government agency. STIG is the hardening standard to use there, and we offer baselines for STIG and for CIS both. So if you're in the private space or the public space, we have offerings for you with an Ansible Lockdown.
Well, I think I believe we're using the STIG internally for our, because we're obviously we're US based from my
Yes.
point of Washington, so we use our own playbooks as well to try and manage and maintain things. So whatever we try and give out to our clients or to the community, we are definitely using internally.
Yeah, we are, and and it is nice to kind of have that internal testing system as we go through with our teams using it and helping those folks out. Um, so yeah, and that kind of leads into some of the subscription services that we also offer, that give guidance and help towards um, you know trying to adopt these, because when you're trying to implement a hardening standard for the first time, just the hardening standard itself is really difficult and complicated and hard to get your head around, and then trying to learn an automation around it, is a bit difficult sometimes. So we do offer a layer of support to help you adopt these baselines and accelerate your adoption of hardening and being more secure in your estate or environment. So yeah, we do offer that with Lockdown Enterprise, that support tier, and it will have people like Mark and myself, help you get going and using the Ansible Lockdown roles.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, when I first started out doing benchmarks and baselines, you do need to know the operating system and then look at all the standards and what they're trying to say to change and why they're trying to change it. Obviously, you can't adopt everything all the time, which is why we variabilize as much as we possibly can. So some items you will need to turn on and off to work for your environments and for your applications that you're running. But yeah, if it was a lot more progressed than it is now, then I've been using it many years ago. Hence why I got into working with Lockdown and growing it further forward. And what we're offering to our subscribers, those people that purchase the support from us, is not only if you find a bug or a fix, then you get priority on those things. We also give you the option to help us guide the pipeline of work we're doing. So that could be we want a new operating system or we want a new application controlled. There's a desire for Kubernetes hardening, there's a desire for Docker or whatever we want to do, or maybe it's an operating system we're not currently doing. That's the sort of thing that we're trying to do from the subscriber point of view. And you have early access right now to all the work we're doing in the background. So while the community is now getting probably 3 to 6 months behind releases, if you're in the subscriber zone, then you get those early releases. As soon as we finish writing new updates and new changes that the providers have come to us, whether CIS or STIG, they go to a private repo only for subscribers, which means you can feedback and really drive forward what we're doing and how we're doing it and how it works for you, getting your priority through rather than the community coming through. But the community has been phenomenal in supporting this and growing it and feeding back and getting there. And Discord has been, I think, the biggest thing we've done in the last 2 years.
Yeah, the community has, adding Discord to the community has given the community a bigger voice. There's a lot of interactions that happen. It's not just opening an issue ticket or opening a PR. There's you can ask more in-depth questions and have a conversation about the question and actually try and learn more about automation on top of the baselines and Ansible Lockdown itself, which also I want to circle back to with our new method of doing releases is we have a private versus public release. And this private release is for Lockdown Enterprise subscribers only. So if you do subscribe, you do get that early access to the baselines. So as soon as we have a benchmark related update ready to go, you will have access to it before the private community, which gives, before it's released to everybody, it has a good chance of being fully tested and vetted out before it's out there in the wild. So that's another element to the Lockdown Enterprise support benefits is you can start testing with benchmark updates earlier than the general community with those.
We should probably tell them where they can find Lockdown and where they can subscribe, because we're talking quite a lot about it and no one really knows where we get it. We haven't mentioned it yet. So if you want to try and get out of Lockdown and you want to look at the community and the code base that we're running from, it is all available on GitHub. It is publicly available on GitHub on Ansible Lockdown. We're also on Ansible Galaxy, so you'll find links to Ansible Galaxy in the code base, either on the MindPoint Group or Ansible Lockdown. And search for either one of those, then you'll find the content we're providing to both those locations. If you want to become a subscriber, then you probably want to be looking at Ansible LockdownEnterprise.com, which will give you a lot more information, or go to the MindPointGroup.com homepage, and you can find more around automation and other offerings at MindPoint Group.
And if you are looking at the GitHub page, the READMEs for each of the repos, each repo is for a specific baseline. You'll find a read the doc styled guide, like an actual manual on how to use it. There's links to blog posts for getting started and best ways to use variables and things like that. So there's a lot of self-help information, But if you need more, or if you want that early access, there is Lockdown Enterprise, the support tier. And as Mark said, that can be found at lockdownenterprise.com if you need more information on that. Also, Mark and I are both in Discord, so if you have questions directly from this, you can reach out to us in Discord as well.
We should also probably mention that when lockdown comes along, it's not just about making sure your system's hardened, but we also provide the auditing part of it as well. So the last couple of years, I think probably 2.5 years ago, George, we started doing not just the remediation through Ansible and making sure that it's hardened, but providing an automation way of making sure that Ansible's doing what we want it to do, and you'll get the results you want, just built in using a very small tool called GOS. And that, again, is in a separate repo, normally finishing off with a -audit. So you'll find rel 9 CIS -audit, rel 9 STIG -audit, and that will be the content we run from there, using very similar languages as Ansible. So you're trying to keep continuity of what your guys are doing, and again, highly configurable. So that's all part of the Ansible Lockdown Enterprise subscriptions. It's all available from the community. And obviously we're working hard with all the people out there to try and make sure we make this bigger and better all the time. I think the audit was pretty good move from there.
Audits, and then those audits are also linked with the relevant hardening baseline. So when you run a hardening baseline with a simple variable toggle, you can have those audits do a pre-scan and a post-scan for running the remediation. So you can see how out of compliance you were and how in compliance you are afterwards, and it generates a report in a couple of different formats. Generally, it's JSON is what most folks use, and it's a very quick scan, so it's not really very intrusive for your time when you're trying to harden really quick. Generally a full system audit for an OS is around a minute, so it is kind of a nice little feature. And if you do run it from the remediation Ansible roles, all of the variables that you set and adjust within that Ansible role also apply to the auditing side. So you don't have to maintain two sets of configurations. You just configure what you need for your remediation, and the audit side will pick that up within the remediation playbook. So did I miss anything there, Mark?
No, I think the only thing I would probably point out is that you may find, if you looked at the audit properly, then a baseline may have 200 controls when you try and run, and yet the audit is still running 500 checks. One of the things we've tried to do is not only just adhere to the baseline with configuration, but to make sure the running configuration is correct. So it's great having the configuration file saying, yep, it's all configured the way it should be, but if it's been changed after this has been booted and it's not been reapplied to a running system, then you can have the config correct, but it's running something completely different. So that's one of the things we've really tried to push through and make sure, again, that's extensible and as possible, the audit, to make sure it's not as brittle. So if you're looking for quotes or not quotes, it would find both. Those sort of where you can configure one way, someone else can configure a different way, but both ways will pass, rather than just being it has to be precise and exact. So I think that's one of the big things we've done. That's helped us out definitely developing the remediation, just to see who's watching the watchman, really. No, I think the audit thing we've got there, the remediation has been going for some time. I think we started it back with Red Hat 6-7 years ago now, as partners working through MindPoint.
Yeah. Then the audit's been around since I think summer of 2021 is when we started really pushing that. So we've been kind of dialing that in. And one of the other things that a lot of the audit scans are brittle, and we kind of solve that for false negatives. But we also, since we have a background of being admins, we kind of know the ways to get false positives or false negatives. So there are some tricky ways you can admin around an audit being discovered as a problem, and we also do those checks as well. So if there's it'll get the gotchas.
Well, we hope it will. We hope it will. But obviously we wouldn't be there, and the feedback we get from the community helps us to expand that and grow that, because there's always different ways. We're always going to find new ways of doing things, as anyone does in IT. So without the community feeding back and providing us information as well, it makes it one place that everyone can start using. So yeah, I completely agree. Audit's made a big difference to us, but the remediations, it makes life so much easier as a admin. So much easier.
Yeah, especially when you get the larger baselines that are 500 plus controls. Going through those manually is really, really hard.
So, George, we can get all this stuff for free. It's all community. We keep saying the community is great. Why would anyone want to buy a subscription? Where do we get it from?
Yep. So the subscription, there's a couple ways to get the subscription. The first is you can order directly through the website. You can use a credit card, or you can reach out to the sales team. And there are links and ways to contact those folks on the website. But really, we should probably start talking about some of the benefits of Lockdown Enterprise, because the speed of adoption to security is really a big thing, and that's one of the larger benefits is you don't have to learn a new automation. You don't have to learn all of these other aspects with community help that might only be there sometimes. You might have a quick answer to a question one day, but then the next day the question might take a week to get answered. With Lockdown Enterprise, if you have a question or an issue that you run into, your question gets answered pretty much immediately. Historically, you email our support box, it opens a ticket in Zendesk, and our team gets alerted, and someone will jump on that ticket and answer you. So it's a very quick turnaround on answering questions within Lockdown Enterprise, and it's a guaranteed quick turnaround of answering your questions or helping you solve a problem that you're seeing within the baseline itself. And then the other aspect is if you need to have a testing phase for a new baseline that comes out, and if you want kind of a longer testing phase, that early release access for the baselines really gives you that ramp for testing. So those are some of the bigger ones in my mind, Mark. Do you have any others?
No, I think the early access is probably really key. Looking at some of the work we've been doing recently, some providers are changing things significantly. So we've gone from a really popular one, which is Rel 8 STIG, version 2 to version 3, CIS, sorry, not STIG. And that's basically a rewrite. They've changed the order of things, they've changed the way things work, the way in which you implement things. So managing and maintaining that and keeping it up together, but getting that early access into the latest and greatest means that your auditor's going to be happy. You can test it earlier before the community's got it out there. And you've got a chance to help drive further forward on how it changes and how we implement those things before the community starts getting it. So you can have a real impact on how that's working, how it works best for you, and how it comes out into the community. So yeah, I think the early access is probably the key. The quick response and turnaround, like you said, we can raise a ticket with us probably within 4 working hours of a business day. You'd probably get a response in some way. Obviously can't fix it because we don't know what the problem is sometimes. We have to work harder with you, but you will get a response in 4 hours, and then the communication starts flowing pretty straightforward. More than happy on any baseline issue you have to see if it's something that we can help you with within the baseline, or how you can use a baseline for your purposes, or how we can even help you mitigate it in many cases as well if you can't actually hit the baseline requirement. So that's really what the subscriber's given you. Is there anything else I've missed off that?
No, I think that's it. I think that really covers it. It's guaranteed, a quick answer, whereas the community side, you might get a quick answer, but there could be a bit of a lag there. And if you're having a problem, generally you want those answered quickly, and then the early access. Just as a note on the early access, all of the actual bug fixes and things on that level are in both public and private. The private repos are for vendor supplied, like from CIS or STIG, updates for those. So if you go from a version 2.1.0 to there's a new release to a 2.2.0, that the update specifically for that 2.2.0 would go into the private side. But if there's issue fixes and bug fixes, things like that, those will go into both areas.
We should probably point out as well how quick we get it out. So what we try and do when a new release comes out, like version 1 to 1.1 of CIS, for example, depending on the amount of code being changed and the baseline that's being changed, we probably aim to get this out with our subscriber base within 2 weeks. So the average is normally 2 weeks to try and get it out available to our subscribers. That will then be another 3, maybe 4 months before it goes out to the community, giving us plenty of chance to try and make sure we get that right. It's working properly for the biggest people that we have out there before the community get it. But it's normally within 2 weeks of release. We find if we're able to turn it around that quickly, we will do. If it's a major change, like we've just said, version 2 to version 3, that can be 2 or 3 weeks work just to write it, let alone the other changes that are taking place. So we do turn it around as quick as possible for the private subscribers.
And our goal, and generally how it works, is 2 weeks, but sometimes there are significant updates. A lot of times on the CIS side, they go out major versions a lot, skipping all of the minor versions. So there's some big changes in those. So those do take a little bit of time. But for general, most of the time it is within 2 weeks. A lot of times it's actually within a couple of days. But yeah, the goal is always within 2 weeks.
Okay, I think that's it, George. Thank you very much. I think we've covered everything else we've got to cover off. There's nothing else I can think of. Yeah. Of course, any more questions where they can find us?
They can find us on Discord. You can check us out. We have an Ansible Lockdown server, so you can search for it. It's public. You have to use the invite links from the Ansible Lockdown readmes. The readmes all have links. So if you go to github.com/Ansible Lockdown, you will find all the repos, everything we have available, and then you can start using them. You can start opening PRs if you want to get involved with the community. But in those repos, you have the readmes that have the manual, the blog posts, the links to Discord, and you can reach to Mark and I in Discord or through the GitHub page.
Oh, and the rest of the team. It's not just us. That's cool. Thank you very much indeed, George. And don't forget lockdownenterprise.com, github.com, Ansible-Lockdown. And you'll find us on Ansible Galaxy as well, if that's your preferred way of getting things. So thank you very much. Cheers, George. Good to cover your chat, and I'll catch up with you soon.